Hello, welcome to the T.chelle show. I am your host, Torrancemarchil, and I hope you're doing well today. I know that I am. And today, I want to come to you guys and talk to you about dating. I feel like everyone talks about dating. Like it's a very popular topic. And so truthfully, I wouldn't really want to address this topic unless I felt like I had something beneficial to say. So we're going to get into the topic. But before we get into the topic, this will only be a part one because I feel like there's a lot to say about dating. And I feel like this is something where you would want to hear multiple perspectives, maybe like a man and a woman. So I do have a friend who I want to do this with. I want him to be on part two just to give his perspective on what he thinks about dating. I think it'll be beneficial. So yeah, this will be part one, but part two, we'll dive into it a bit more and you'll be able to get two perspectives. So I want to pose the question, like how are we supposed to date today? And I think there are two answers. I think if we're just talking about people, how are people just supposed to date today? But as believers, followers of Christ, I feel like we operate just completely differently. So as you know, there's tons of rules and do's and don'ts. And that's what really turns me off of the topic of dating, just because it's so divisive. There's women shouldn't do this, women shouldn't do that, women don't do this, women don't do that. And the same for men. And it's just like, why are we having, not we, because I'm not arguing, but why are people having the same argument different ways every single day? I just feel like dating today is so transactional. I feel like people don't really even get to enjoy dating unless they feel like they're getting something out of it. That's not to say that you shouldn't be with someone or vetting someone who does add to your life in some sort of way. You definitely should. The man should be doing whatever he should do to add to her and make her feel like, hey, this is someone that I would want to spend the rest of my life with, and vice versa. But that happens naturally and organically. We haven't really had issues with that in the past, I think. But now everything is so transactional and so divisive that it seems like dating is like pulling teeth. It's like, oh, I'm not going to open her car door unless she tells me, or unless I feel like she isn't using me for my money. Oh, I'm not going to do this for him unless I feel like, he's spending a certain amount of money on me. It's just like, what do we even have here today? What are we even doing? So it's really like annoying to see and witness. And it trickles down to real life. Like there are people that I speak to in my real life sometimes who will regurgitate some of the same topics and same ideals. And it's just so draining. I honestly don't even like talking about dating in my personal life. I'm just doing this as a topic because this is constantly a hot topic. But I feel like people are just too involved. And this is where I'm going to kind of hone in on just like, how are believers supposed to date? I feel like how are believers supposed to date? Now, I can definitely tell you how believers should not date. I could definitely tell you about that. But I'm not good at dating, truthfully, honestly. I've been a legitimate believer since 2017. I say it all the time, but I have never actually dated another believer, like a real one. I don't even think I've dated a guy who even really saw himself as Christian or anything like that. So I'm the wrong person to take dating advice from. However, I can tell you what not to do. So my mindset in Christ really has always been, if I date someone in Christ and the Lord has revealed to the both of us that we are meant to be and to go to the next step, I don't really care. I'm just kind of coasting. I feel like even believers can be a little too involved with how we date each other. I personally do not have a criteria for God when it comes to what I want in a guy, because I trust God to give me what I need first and what I want second. And I can tell him what I want and be so firm on what I want. And then he gives me something even better than I want. That's always the mindset I have had if I were to date another believer. And I knew we were supposed to be dating. Because truthfully, even another believer, I probably wouldn't just be dating other believers unless I knew God said that this was like, okay. Especially now, I'm a little bit scared to date, and we'll get into that. But I have friends and we talk, and this is no shade to them. I'm not backbiting or anything like that, but it's interesting to hear them say, what they want, and they have a type, and they don't know if they could date someone that has this or this or that. And in my mind, I'm always like, do you not trust God to give you someone that you like? I feel like if I were to date, I wouldn't even want to give God my criteria, because I have dated my criteria and it was terrible. Every single last one of the relationships was terrible. Okay. It's not what I was supposed to have. It's not what I needed. So what do I look like with my human brain going to God, telling him what I want, when he knows my heart? He knows everything in me. He knows things about me that I don't even know. He knows my future husband and everything in him. He knows who I will make a good pair with. So I don't have any criteria for him. I always say that God is the best matchmaker. Whoever he puts me with, I'm sure I'll be more than happy with. And there's like the typical things of, you have to sacrifice and put in effort for relationships and marriages and things like that. I'm prepared to do that. But for me, I don't think it's really time for me to date seriously. But I think when it is time for me to date seriously, I won't have an issue with who God sends me. I will have no issue with that. And I would hope that whoever is trying to court me feels the same way. So that's my idea. People are going to be people. That's between you and the Lord. But that's just kind of my opinion on it. I just feel like us as believers, we can just be a little bit too involved. I think it's a little different for the men, since the men are the ones who are supposed to be pursuing. So they probably should, do a little bit more action than us women. It's a little bit different for them. So I will say that. But overall, I just think we're a little bit too involved. I think we should just give God our desire. If we desire to date, desire to be married, give God our desire and let him get us ready for that. And I just think we should enjoy the process when he gives us his okay. That's just what I think about that. But let me tell you how not to date. And I'm going to get a little bit personal here. So as long as I've been walking with the Lord, it really makes no sense as to why I have never dated another believer unless I was just strictly single. And truthfully, my whole life since about the age of 12, 13, maybe like 14, I've never actually been single. Like even when I've been single, I've never truly been single. I've always had someone. And so I was in a relationship when I got seriously saved in 2017. I was with the father of my children and I got saved, and it's really a complicated story and I won't get too deep into it, but we were shacking up. We were shacked up. So it was a little harder to end the relationship after I got saved. A lot of things transpired and then we eventually broke up. We broke up in 2020. So 2020, I was single for most of it. And then I would say, yes, 2021, I very, very briefly dealt with a guy who I knew was not saved, but I just wanted to have someone. And this is actually why I have always dated men in the world, even when I was saved. I dated from a place of trauma and rejection and from a scarcity mindset. And so my thought was, I can barely find Christian friends near me. And then the ones that I do have, it doesn't mean that we're compatible. So what are the odds that I find a Christian man who I'm supposed to be with here where I am? It's like finding a needle in a haystack. So I just thought that it was just so far-fetched for me to find a Christian man who I was compatible with and who I was supposed to be dating. And so I believed the lie that, just it's okay. Like people in the world have successful, long marriages, happy marriages. So just find the best sinner and work on him, which please do not do that. That is a form of manipulation. and witchcraft, if we're being honest. And you're also setting yourself up for heartbreak, which I did every single time. So I dated a little bit in 2021, just this one guy, very briefly, like a month maybe. And then I don't really think I dated again until 2022. And 2022, I met someone who I already knew who he was. We were sort of kind of friends, coworkers, and that's how I knew him. And I don't know what happened. We started talking a lot, we started talking, and then we thought we were compatible. We started dating. And in my mind, I knew that this would not work because he is not saved. It's never going to work. But in my mind, I believed the lie of, he acknowledges God. So, there's hope. And that hope was very short-lived because we only lasted like 2 months, maybe. Yeah, 2-3 months, something like that. And then I didn't date again until 2023. Around the same time I met the previous person. And again, this person was somebody I already knew. This is also why I don't believe in spinning the block. Every person I have dated more than once. Do not spin the block. It is a set up, okay? Do not do it. But the last guy I dated, which was the guy I dated in 2023, this was an ex from almost 10 years ago, like 9-10 years ago. I actually met him before I met the father of my kids. And so I was thinking, a lot of the time has passed. Why not? And so I began dating him sort of, I say sort of because it was unofficial. So it was like a situationship, but you know how that stuff go. So I started dating him or whatever. And, I think because of the previous relationship, which the previous relationship that I had in 2022 put me in therapy, child. It wasn't him, though. It wasn't him. He triggered something in me, a deeper issue, and that put me in therapy. But because of everything I had known in 2023 being just this year of revelation for me, I didn't go into it blindly like I had before. I went into it kind of really knowing it wouldn't work out, but just trying to enjoy it while I could. Because I was lonely. 2023, I was very lonely. God had me in isolation. And so I was in isolation, and then I was in a situation I did not find favorable. So he was like my distraction. So I was using him as a distraction, essentially, and he was using me for other things. So, yeah, I was dating him, and then things just started to seem off. Not naturally, but if you have the gift of discernment, which I think all believers should have a level of discernment, but if you have any type of discernment, you can tell when something is off spiritually. And of course, something's off spiritually, he's not saved. It's like, duh. But I was just, for like a solid month, I was just like, there's something about this. I can't put my finger on it, but I think that this is something. I'm not going to say what I thought it was, but I thought it was something. And so when I got kind of desperate to find out what that thing was, the Lord did reveal it to me. So it was what I thought it was, but it was something else as well. And so this person was essentially sent, because he did come out of nowhere. Let me tell you, let me tell you, me and this guy followed each other on Instagram for years, since the first time we dated, till the second time we dated. And so that just goes to show, no shade to this guy. I hope none of the guys I've ever dated listens to this show. I really hope not. But we followed each other on Instagram for 9 years. Never interacted on Instagram, never talked. It's like we're like silent followers. Like we don't know each other. Then all of a sudden, he's in my DMs. And it's funny too, because he came into my DMs when I was we were doing a corporate fast. First day of the fast, he's in my DMs. And so that's how I kind of knew, girl, don't entertain that, but I did it anyway. And so the Lord revealed to me that this person was essentially sent to distract you and a bunch of other things that I won't really get into. And so I ended it, and I was kind of able to see things clearly after that. But I was still like heartbroken about it, because in that, God revealed to me that this person was never who I thought he was. I wasn't even so heartbroken about the second breakup. I was just heartbroken about the fact that this person who I thought was a certain way when I first met him, I have always thought of him as a certain way. Like, he was the one ex I had nothing negative to say about him. Like, he was a cool ex, you know, I had nothing negative to say about him. Just to find out that, oh, he's actually not that. So I was actually very heartbroken about that. We actually broke up, however you break up in a situationship. But we actually broke up on my birthday in 2023. But I wasn't sad because I was having a good time. But yeah. And so God used that to catapult me into what I'm supposed to be doing, which are a lot of things. One of them being this. So praise God for that. But I could have saved myself 3 months of just, because the relationship, as short as it was very up and down emotionally. So I could have saved myself a lot of anxiety and a lot of just wasted time. I could have done a lot in those 3 months. The Lord could have done a lot in me and with me in those 3 months. But I allowed myself to get distracted. So I'm sharing all of these to tell you, if there's anybody out there who is doing what I did or can relate, do not do that. Do not do what I did. Okay, please, like, do as I say, not as I did, because I no longer date outside of the faith. And even in the faith, I don't want to date you unless God tells me it's okay. I just don't have time for it. So dating outside of the faith can just be heartbreaking, and it can just be devastating and all these things, right? But it can also be dangerous. And so I want to share this one story with you. It's really mind-boggling how God works. So again, all these men, there are men I met a long time ago, and they come back later. But this guy, he didn't really come back. I kind of like brought him back in my life. So anyway, about 2015, that's when I met the father of my children, and I met another guy as well. And so me and this one guy had like a summer fling. I wasn't saved, so we did what we did. So we had like a summer fling. After that, we really didn't speak like that. We spoke periodically. Like if I was in Atlanta, which is where I was raised, I would speak to him. Or if he was in DC, where I lived at the time, that's kind of where we would speak. So it was kind of just like off and on, wasn't ever steady. He wasn't ever really in my line of vision. It was just someone who was there. And so I went to Atlanta to visit my mother and some friends of mine in 2020. And usually when I go home, I just try to see everybody I can while I'm down there, because I never go home. I do not like going home. Don't ask me why. I just don't. And so I was like, man, I should just have a good time while I can, like, you know? And so I don't know if he slid it. I think I posted on my Instagram that I was in Atlanta or going to Atlanta, and he DM'd me, or maybe I responded to one of his story posts. I don't remember, but either way, we started talking. And I was like, oh, we should hang out. He was like, okay, yeah, sure. And I knew I had no business doing this, but I did it anyway. And so I go down there, I'm hanging with my friends, and we plan a date, or he plans a date one night. And so he takes me out on a date, and it's fine, but then something happens that should not have happened. And I'm not going to say it explicitly, but you can use your context clues. Something happened that shouldn't have happened. And I don't know. I felt however I felt about it, but I was like, I'm never going to see him again. But we did say to each other, like, oh, if you're ever in DC, hit me up, But people just say that. You don't think somebody's actually going to follow through with that. People just say that. But no. I think about a month or two, maybe 3 months later, he actually did come to DC. I'm not going to say he came for me. I think he just came because he wanted to come, but he definitely was intending to see me when he came up there. And so when he told me he was up there, or he was coming up there, I felt conflicted because I wanted to tell him not to. But I was like, well, he's not coming for just me. But anyway, he ended up coming up there, and we were supposed to meet. I didn't meet him like the first 2 nights because he was like doing other stuff, and I'm a mom, so I was with my kids. a whole bunch of other stuff. But I was conflicted anyway because I'm like, I don't want to see him because I feel like if I see him, he's going to expect something based on our past. And I don't want to do that. And so I was just really conflicted about it or whatever. I didn't want to argue about it. I know I shouldn't be afraid of that, but that's just where where my mind was at that time. And so I think I was still conflicted, but I was leaning towards, let me just go meet him somewhere public. And then it's like, once I started thinking that, I felt the Lord told me to Google him. Mind you, at this point, this is someone I have known sort of for some years now, for at least like 4 or 5 years. Yeah, 4 or 5 years. So I'm like, okay. So I Google him. And, girls especially, we're pro lurkers, but I had not lurked on someone in a long time. And so I really hope he never hears this episode. He shouldn't. He unfriended me on Instagram. So, yeah. So I did Google him. And at first I didn't really find anything, interesting. I just saw normal stuff. And then I stumbled upon something. And it was very concerning. And so I was like, what is this? And so I'm like double checking to make sure I saw right. And so when I double checked, I found even more stuff pertaining to that. And I was like, are you kidding? This guy has this stuff attached to him. And I was just on a date with him not too long ago. That's crazy. Like, I just saw about so many different things. And so I was like, yeah, no, I can't. I'm not going to see him. Because what I see, if I deny him certain things, I don't know what's going to happen. And again, I don't know all the details concerning what I found. So I'm not going to say really too much about that. But still, what I saw was concerning. And what was even more concerning was his response. At the time, I was living with actually my friend that I want to do the part 2 with. I was living with him because of a whole different situation. And so I went upstairs and I was talking to him about what I found, the situation. And he was like, yeah, no, like, don't go. Don't even set yourself up like that, essentially. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm just mind blown by that. And I think he told me to maybe ask him about it, but I think he was kind of just like, just trash the whole situation. So I went to my best friend and I was talking to her and she was like, just ask him about it because sometimes people get in trouble for things, but they can explain the situation to you. Maybe it's one of those situations. So I said, okay. So I asked him about the situation one night, I think that very night. And his responses were so strange. His whole demeanor, and even though it's through text message, I feel like you can still feel when someone's demeanor has changed. And so I was asking him about what I found. And he was giving off that he was even upset that I went snooping, that I found it. And truthfully, I don't care. Like, you can be mad that I snooped. I don't care. What's more important is what I found. And so he didn't really answer me. Then he kind of was saying stuff like, oh, I'll tell you about it when I see you. We could talk more about it in person. And I'm like, are you kidding? You might have a machete or something. No, thank you. So I didn't go see him. I forgot how we ended the conversation, but I never went to go see him and we ended it there. I don't think we talked ever again after that. He enjoyed his trip, I guess, went back home and then unfollowed me on Instagram. So I think I'm safe. I don't think he's going to ever hear this podcast episode. But if God had not spoken to me, who knows what would have happened? And if I had not been obedient, who knows what would have happened? But this is what happens when you entertain men or women outside of the faith. And this can even happen inside the faith if you're not careful. You have to be careful regardless. And so that, you would think I would have learned my lesson from that. I didn't. It sobered me up for a minute, but in the past I could be a bit naive. So I just feel like if I dated you before, if I knew of you before, I trust you a little bit more than a brand new person. So I didn't learn my lesson. I went on and dated more unsaved men after that until this last one in 2023. And in that, I just sat down. I was just like, God, I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I don't know why I thought that I could just take the best sinner and polish him up and just make him what I wanted, because I just did not believe that you would send me the person that you have for me. But I'm tired of it. It's draining. It's dangerous. It's a whole bunch of different things. And then even if they are a decent guy, your morals and your faith can be compromised. We see it in the Bible with King Solomon. He had 1,000 women, and the Bible says that, paraphrasing, but they turned his heart from God. You know, he started acknowledging, this is just me speaking, acknowledging their gods, because he had foreign women. All the women wasn't saved. So, yeah, he dated foreign women and they turned his heart from God. So dating an unsafe person can even just make you start compromising your faith. And it can happen very slowly. Very slowly. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly and subtly. And then you realize months down the line, hey, I'm not near God anymore. I'm not nowhere near where I was when I met this person. I used to have a relationship with God. Now I don't remember the last time I spoke to him, you know? And so I feel like, especially in today's time, it's very important to be safe when you're dating anyone. Like, people are just going crazy today. And so I just advise everybody, whether you're dating in the faith or out of the faith or whatever, please be safe. Please use discernment. Please be prayerful about everything and everyone. God knows people's hearts. So they may seem like a nice person to us, but they could be there on assignment. They could be, they could have other issues. Anything could happen, or they could be a good person. I'm not saying this to stop you from dating. The purpose of the show is not to stop you from dating. Trust me. I just want everyone to be wise, use discernment, and take everything to the Lord, especially concerning getting so involved with another person, because dating and relationships are deeper than like friendships. But, you know, you got to be careful with those too. But yeah, I'm just going to end the episode there. Please date safely. Please date carefully. Please consult the Lord whenever you're trying to date anyone. Do not date from a scarcity mindset, a lack mindset. Do not believe the lies that Satan tells you about dating. Do not think that anything you've done in your past makes you unworthy of dating someone who God has for you. God can and will clean you up. Do not believe the lies. So on that note, I'm going to end today's episode, and we will pick this topic back up at a later date with my good friend. I don't know when, but you'll see when you see. And yeah, so if you like today's topic, I shared a lot of my personal life in this one. So if you guys have any questions or anything, or you just want to tell me if you've had a similar situation, feel free to drop it in the YouTube comments or DM it to me on Instagram. And you can find me on YouTube at the T.chelle Show. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell, all of that good stuff. You can find me on Soundcloud, Pinterest, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at Torrancemarchil. And yeah, I don't have anything else to say. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And with that, I bid you adieu. Bye.